Okay, welcome back. I'm running a little bit late on my energy update. But it's okay. If we're only technically 4 days in, we're still getting there. So that's what this is gonna be all about. We're gonna do June energy update. You guys, this is getting real. This is I don't even know where to fully begin because this has been such a workup to where we are finally getting into June and with this big shift that I have spoken about multiple times and have been talking about since probably the fall. I've had a lot of people asking me what that shift looks like. What is it? A lot of questions are wanting specifics. I can't give you specifics because I don't know what the events are necessarily going to be. I don't know exactly what it looks like in that aspect of like the reality and the physical part of it. But this shift is real and it is coming and it's coming fast and it is very solidified now. And what I mean by that is every time I've tapped in on it, it's like before there was still collective consciousness that could kind of lean one way or the other and possibly shift that a bit to being a different kind of event or outcome or whatever it might have been. So there was never a full certainty of being like, yes, this is going to be the path that we're looking like we're going to take. But that has definitely solidified over the last, I would say, the month of May. I could definitely feel more and more of this excitement around this finality of yes, this is happening in this direction now. And so this month of June is a big one. It was interesting because last night when I was kind of sitting with this, I was thinking, oh, should I just get on and do it now? When a part of me was like, no, no, my team was just like, no, no, let's just sit in this for a minute. This is kind of a big one. There's a lot to this month. That's the individual aspects, and then of course there's the collective aspects, and we'll touch on a little bit of both. But it was kind of this big, like, nope, we're not just going to jump into this one. We need a little bit of time to actually sit with this one a little bit longer. And I actually ended up pulling some cards with them, which is interesting because I haven't pulled cards yet for energy updates, particularly. And so there was a multitude of cards that actually came out. It was like one after another, and I kept shuffling, and they're popping out more and more and more. But you guys are probably gonna giggle when you realize how synchronistic this really is in alignment with what is going to be coming here this month. Um, so with these big shifts that are going to happen, it's always going to come down to your perception and your awareness of understanding it's for something larger. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because whatever goes on and whatever events these may be that um, come out might not always look or feel the best. Okay. Initial reaction might be like, what the fuck? Or, man, more of this shit. Why do we have to keep putting our heads in the sands and people might be becoming frustrated with other people and them wanting to deny the fact of what is actually truth and what's actually kind of coming out here. But remember, everybody's truth is their own, which means we cannot shove our truth down other people's throats. It doesn't work that way. What you can do is find your resonancy and what is true for you. And that's what you keep and you go forward with for yourself. It is not for you to worry about others' truths or what they choose to believe in, whether they're conscious of that or not. Okay. It's going to be a really important month to remember. And this has, again, been part of that workup, right? Why self-care and the awareness of self and these things over the last couple months have been so prevalent and working on ourselves and coming back to that heart center. And again, May being that space of having the compassion in a different way for humanity in general, but also for self and just these different pieces that have been trying to be lined up for these big shifts that are happening now on earth, and it's all happening in the physical world, right? I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard many talk about the new world and like how that was all so much energy before, but this is where we're seeing it getting implemented into the real world now. The physical world is following now what has been laid out. And again, it all does come down to individual self choice, right? Where do you want to be? But at the same point, it's gotten to a point now too where it is moving in a direction where not one person or anything can necessarily stop it. There's been enough collective consciousness wake up. There's been enough of awakenings happening on our planet, individual people that are finally starting to see that oneness coming back together again as a human collective rather than the separation and all this stuff that's been on our planet for a long, long time now. So I'm going to quickly go through the cards. We're going to talk a little bit on that collective basis first, and then we're going to dive a little bit more into the individual aspects of self and what might be prevalent for some people here in June. So the caterpillar was the first one that came out, which is opportunity. So that being the first card that comes out for the month of June, there is massive opportunity here. Massive opportunity for us at the collective level and also as individuals, yes. But the collective is choosing to move in a different direction. And what I mean by that is we're moving in a direction that is actually going to benefit humanity later down the road, rather than us repeating constantly what we have been somewhat repeating in certain eras, or the consciousness level is actually ascending far enough now where there's not really going to be a looking back. Um, Individually you can have a bit more control over that, but at the same point, as a collective, we are moving into times that are very, very different. Many have referred to as the golden times. Certain aspects and over certain years on earth, there's a lot of things to it. There's a lot of math, there's a lot of things, you could put a lot of labels on it. I'm not here to put labels on it. I want you all to know this is massive times we are in, and I want you to be excited by it. I do want you to be excited, because you have chosen to be here in huge times on earth while we are changing and moving through this. And it's a very, very blessed time to be here. But at the same time, I understand it can be very challenging at the same point. But the challenging is where it comes down to the individual aspect of how we choose to deal with that. Okay. So the next one is Will o' the Wisp, which is treasures hidden in the shadows. This is a really big one considering opportunity came out first and treasures hidden in the shadows. This is a little bit what I'm talking about, how these events might not seem like good things, or they're bringing up corruption or bringing up terrible, terrible things, maybe terrible sides of humanity, things that maybe have been hidden in the shadows for purpose of wanting not to be obviously seen for the realistic, I guess, intentions behind these things. This is where a lot of people can get a little bit lost in wallowing in, how could humanity be like this? I've lost my faith in humanity. This is terrible. But here's the thing, it's not new, you guys. This is something that has been going on for hundreds of years in certain aspects, to certain degrees, with the same kind of intentions that are just being brought through in different ways, obviously, in today's world. But they're the same intentions that have been in existence for a long time now, that are finally coming to the light to be seen and let go of for once and changed. But they need to be embraced in the fact of, you can't just put your head in the sand and be like, that didn't happen, that doesn't exist. It does. And that is part of our duality on our planet. We have both sides. You can go from one extreme to the other. The pendulum swing can be massively great. And it's no different when it comes to the collective consciousness. And it's no different to some of the events that are going to start becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, obviously, there's probably things that you're thinking about right now that you know of that have been talked about, or certain things brought forward. That's getting to be in a greater state. Okay, more things are going to come forward. More things are going to be brought to the light, and that is treasures hidden in the shadows. Though the treasures is understanding that it can be liberated and changed. Okay, that is the treasure and understanding, and accepting and not trying to run away from it, accepting that it has existed, but then choosing consciously for us to move in a different direction that is more of a higher benefit, not just for ourselves, but of course, all the generations that are here as well. Okay, so then going along with all of that, the next card that flew out was Stranger, which is curiosity. Keep your curiosity about everything you hear. I want you to question all of it. Does it feel resonant to me? That's what you're going to ask yourself. Does this resonate with me? If it doesn't, I want you to let it go. If it is something that's a little bit more challenging to you, maybe it's playing on your emotions quite a bit, maybe you're angry about it, okay, that's resonating with you to a certain degree. It's not to say that you're going to be that person to go and do those things or be that terrible, intention, but it's something that resonates in you. This is what I'm talking about. Don't run away from it. Because at a collective consciousness level, if more of us can accept the responsibility of ourselves and responsibility for the collective in a way of recognizing that this duality exists here, the more that starts to transmute. Okay, so keep your curiosity. Don't just believe everything you're told or heard. Feel into these things. Does that resonate with me? That's going to be the big question for June. Does that resonate with me? Okay, the next one that came out was Lost Compass, getting back to integrity. Okay, now we're talking a little bit about the shift happens. And we're talking, I still feel middle-ish of June, anywhere up into the middle of June into those 3 weeks. So right up into the beginning of July. Okay. Now we're going to talk a little bit about after the fact, after the shift, after these things kind of happen and come forward, when the fire kind of loses its bite a little bit. We're looking at lost compass, getting back to integrity. That is what humanity needs to do. We need to all as individuals come back to our integrity, come back to ourselves, come back to awareness of understanding we are not human. This is actually just an experience for us as a soul. We are eternal beings in our own right. We do not just live our life here and forget. We have come here to learn and to bring that forth with us, and that wisdom when we return home is what we always call it. Um, and to remember that getting back to integrity as a humanity and a collective in that right also means we can't be tearing each other apart just because someone else has a different opinion. I am not saying that you can't have a conversation and have perspective be brought forward, but it can be done without anger and it can be done without frustration. That comes from needing to be right, needing your opinion or your proof in your own mind to be validated. Okay. And if that is making you angry or frustrated because you cannot simply have a conversation and have perspectives be brought to the table, whether you agree with them or not is not the point. But if it is activating you or triggering you in some way, that is for you to understand. I do not necessarily need to have this conversation continuing, but I need to recognize in myself that there is something here that I may need to look at for me if I ever want to have these kind of conversations without being triggered. Yeah, I understand a lot of people are gonna be like, yeah, well, a lot of people are like that in the world. That's also a belief, though, because I also know of a lot of people that we can have very honest conversations with each other with very different perspectives with no such emotion getting in the way. It's just very clear, it's very straightforward, and it comes from a very loving place, just simply being human. Okay. So getting back to integrity is going to be a really big one when it comes into the next half of this year, actually. Getting back into integrity is not just individual, it is definitely going to come as humanity starts to reignite itself and come together as a unit once more. Okay, which leads us into the next card, which is Woodwives, and that is adaptability. I just heard them say humanity is so much more adaptable than all of us have been told to believe in the last 100 years. It is a superpower that all of us carry as an individual. And when we access that ourselves for ourselves and we truly embrace us as being human, but also as our own individuality, and then we embrace that for the collective, the adaptability that comes and the resiliency that actually exists here as being human is incredible. There are many stories about, they just said the miracle stories, the adrenaline kicking in and people doing these crazy, amazing things or, saving somebody's life and all that stuff. And they think, oh, well, the adrenaline just wears off and that's that. And it's just a moment. But the thing about it is, it doesn't need to just be a moment. This clarity and this strength and this togetherness does exist. It's just our own beliefs so much get in the way because we've all been taught that we are individualistic. And yet we adapt better when we come together. And that is what's starting to happen in the collective consciousness of being human now. We are ascending. We are been in it for a while, but we are in the depths of it now where it's happening on the physical level. Okay. So the biggest thing is the last thing that they have kind of brought in the cards was the deep quiet, which is meditation and stillness. This brings me back a little bit to what will individually be more of obviously a tool that can be used. But deep quiet meditation and stillness actually can be done with the collective as well. And what I mean by that is when you choose to go into meditation, guarantee you there are other people in meditative states at the same time. And if you choose to instead just not be only in your own bubble, but in choosing to allow that connection to happen through the collective consciousness with anybody else that may be in meditation as well, strengthens that clarity and that stillness within the collective, which in a way brings truth forward, that many can feel more deeply rather than feel like they're being deceived or being unsure of what that truth might be because it doesn't feel super solidified. So actually being in meditation is great for us as individuals, sure, but it can also be extremely helpful when it comes to collective consciousness as well. Just like they just brought back the I'm sure if you've ever heard of the world meditation or the group meditations that they'll do all across the world, they ask everybody to meditate at the exact same time. It literally raises the frequency of humanity and the collective consciousness, but also Earth itself. It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. And if you don't believe me, go and look up some of the research they've actually done. They have done research on people doing meditation together, whether it be physically or across the world, and everybody's just doing it at the same time. But if they also hyper focus on, let's say, a certain city and pushing all that energy and the balance and the calmness, they actually have proof that it's actually brought down crime rates, people's anxiety. People are just more calm. There's less crime. There's less of that other side of the duality that's so much in play. It's amazing. So if you haven't done any, looking around, I do suggest looking around at some information that might help you to understand how powerful not just meditation is, but in general, energy runs the world. Okay, we're the densest form you can get of energy. That's why we have always been taught that the physical world is the only thing that matters, because it's the only matter in our world. And yet it all has to come from somewhere. We come from somewhere. Table, the chair, everything. It all has come from somewhere. It's just been collected and formed into a different type of energy, but you can't create and you can't destroy energy. So you can only harness it in different forms. Okay. So when we're talking about meditation, you're accessing some of the highest frequency that are in existence, not just on our planet, but in our universe. Okay. And when we do that, we rebalance ourselves, we rebalance our energetic body into our physical bodies, which always makes everybody feel usually better, but it can also help us on a collective massively in the physical world as well. So if you're not super familiar with that, I do suggest go and look around. This is why they always say the more you read, the more you choose to expand your perspectives, choose to listen to other people and what they have to say. Again, not saying everything is truth of what everybody is saying to you, but that's why you resonate with what your truth is, and you're going to pick out what resonates for you and you're going to leave the rest. It's one of the biggest things why we always say on the podcast, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. You might come back 3 different times and listen to this and get something different every time. That's okay. That's how truth moves with you. It's your resonance moves with you as you grow, let go of certain things, let go of different beliefs. Okay. But you have to challenge yourself to do that. All right. So meditation will be the tool that is going to be helpful massively moving forward. Now, they're giving me a couple different things here when it comes to the individual part of this. So June is going to be a big month of truth. Okay. Like honestly, overall, truth is going to be a massive one for a lot of people. A lot of people, even right now, don't know what to believe. They don't know what is true. You can always find every single thought process. You could find proof on the internet these days, but that's not what this is about. You are trying to find your truth that is yours and yours alone, which means you feel it. You don't think about it, you feel it. It is like when you've had conversations with someone and they're like, oh my God, I just got the goosebumps. I literally felt that through my body. It's the same way when you can feel music. Um, it's something very similar. So if you can feel music through your bones, or that's why it brings up your emotion because you're feeling the music, this is something very similar. So if that gives you a better analogy, use that going forward. Finding your truth in everything, challenging yourself, questioning all of it, everything that we've ever been taught, everything that's ever brought to you, question it. Does that resonate with me? Does that resonate with me? Because again, coming back to that, that was already a big piece of not just the collective, but as individuals, it's going to be quite important for us to understand how to find our truth when there is mountains of information that are available today. This is the one way that makes it a lot easier. And two, the second thing is some people don't know if they're just trying to make it up for themselves. You're not making it up for yourself, I promise. If you find it helpful or it makes you feel good, then there's nothing wrong with adopting part of that as your belief or, those things, but you still have to still recognize the shadow of everything as well. Because I find some people just want to always love and light, right? And they want to just be in that space. And yet they're so unwilling to acknowledge the shadow. And it's not just a shadow of self, it's a shadow of humanity, it's a shadow of the duality that exists here. And you have to be able to embrace both. It's not to say that you have to choose doing bad intentional things, but you do have to recognize that they both exist here. And when you can walk with both, you have a balance. Okay. So that's when you hear people talking about you need to be balanced. That is the balance I'm speaking of, is the balance of duality and being able to self-accept and being able to feel the uncomfortable things and being able to accept that and know also that this is all just a larger experience for every single soul that's here, no matter if they've chosen to do bad intentional things or not. They are still just a soul having an experience here, and they are not here to necessarily be judged by someone who would say, I would never do such a thing. Well, sure, maybe you wouldn't, but if I put you in the right situation, I guarantee you would have a different thought process. And yet then you would be scared of yourself because you would not recognize the fact that it does exist in every single one of us. You can't get away from duality. It's a part of our existence as being human. It's a part of what we go through here as our own learning. And yes, you get to choose. You always have free will to choose. Of course you do. And yes, there's products of environment. Yes, I understand that. But at the same time, those people could be making different choices up here that could lead to a very different physical reality in front of them. Right. So that is the thing about this. Truth is always coming back down to ourselves and ourselves alone. Your truth is never going to be exactly the same as somebody else's. And so I would ask, that's why I ask you to find it for yourself. If it is helpful for someone to hear you speak of your perspective, wonderful. But nobody's here to shove their perspective down each other's throats and ask somebody to say that's the only truth that exists. You do not need to intertwine with those kinds of people if you're finding some of them in your life, or maybe you're recognizing that in some of the relationships you've had and you've just kind of been blind to a little bit of that. Not saying again you have to start fights, but to recognize that and understand, is it something I still want in my life, right? The reason for this again is because the second half this year, as individuals, some are going to have an extremely bumpy ride because they've been putting it off and resisting a lot of things. And some will get a bit of a reprieve. I would like to say it that way. A reprieve if maybe there has been a lot going on, or there has been a lot of things and a lot of challenges, or those, a lot of big uproar in life. And maybe you felt like you've dealt with it really well. That's fantastic. But maybe not so much. That's okay too. Again, you cannot have regrets because of reaction. Reaction comes from programming that was given to us from the time we were children. It is only simply up to us to go forward with choosing that you have a preference to reaction. And so it's not just a reaction any longer. It's now you getting to choose what that reaction gets to be, which is now a response rather than just automatic. So there'll be a bit of a reprieve for some where it will die down. The wave gets a lot smaller. I feel like the stillness, actually, that was brought up in the meditation stillness card. There comes a stillness. It's kind of like a shock happens, right? And a shift happens and a stillness comes afterward. It's almost like we hit the eye of the storm almost. It's almost exactly what it looks like to me, is we hit the eye of the storm and there's a stillness. And yet it can be extremely uncomfortable for some people, because if you're not used to stillness, or you're unsure of quiet, or you don't know how to be, and you feel awkward in yourself, just even trying to sit with yourself, I would suggest jumping on that bandwagon of taking some self-care, because this stillness will shake people hard enough to bring forth the things that are not serving them any longer. But it'll also be a place where you can really embrace that stillness and get some crazy momentum going as summer kind of comes into play here as well. So it'll come down again, individualistic wise will be your choice and where you're at and what kind of things have been going on in your life, as all of our journeys are different. But this is definitely a time of truth, and this is definitely a time of how do you want to embrace the stillness that's coming and integrate that into who you are, which means you become still as well. If you want to process and integrate stillness, you become still. So many people think I have to do more, I have to work more, I have to, I should, all these things. And you're already limiting yourself by believing there's more to do. Literally, it gets to be that simple. It gets to be way more simple than you can ever conceptualize until you finally do it. And you accept that you can receive in such a simple state. And yet being still in stillness is the only way you can integrate stillness. Because what comes from stillness is clarity. And what comes from clarity is ideas and movement and momentum. But to get that, you have to become still. So by finding your truth, becoming still also gets easier, because now you're not battling with yourself, constantly thinking you need to do one thing over another. You come still and you come to stillness and understanding. That's actually where a lot of clarity comes from. Now, I feel like my team's laughing a little bit because they're like, yeah, well, we know, Dana, you're an internal processor. And I am. I'm very much an internal processor. I am not going to blab out all my problems to somebody to try and talk them out. I get very weird about that because I don't know how to put a lot of what I'm feeling into words. So for me, I'm a very internal processor. I don't do a lot of talking out loud often. If I am talking out loud, I'm probably trying to inform, or I'm trying to just get it all into making enough sense in my brain that I have figured it out. And that's for me as an internal processor. So it's very easy for me now to come to stillness and come to meditation and do that process for myself. So internal processor, if that's how you are, you ain't gonna have any problem finding that stillness, because internal processors already kind of naturally have that space within ourselves that we would prefer to go inwards and deal that way. Unless you've got a very talkative brain, that's then telling me you've got a disconnect between your actual energy self and your physical self. But that's a whole nother conversation. We'll probably make another podcast sometime on how do you decipher that. But an external processor, or maybe you're a bit of both, and that's okay. But if you're a bit of both, you're gonna listen to a little bit of what we got to say about the external processing as well. Being an external processor, a lot of people want to physically get it out of them somehow, whether that be writing, whether that be talking, whether that be bouncing ideas off of people, repeating the story to other people so that they can start to make sense of it in their own mind, or whatever's going on in life, or the challenge or the situation. Those kinds of things, external processors feel the need to get it out of them, and so stillness can be a little harder for an external processor because they're always kind of looking to put it in the physical world somehow. So I would say if you're an external processor and you know that you like to write it down or talk it out, be careful who you talk it out with. Okay. The reason why I say that again is because someone else's energy can very quickly change your stillness that you're looking for as an external processor. They can actually create chaos, is what happens, because it's a misalignment between frequencies. Because again, what's yours is yours, and someone else can only understand that to the degree that they know how to listen and feel themselves. So if you're trying to bounce this off of somebody that's not really hyper aware of being a good listener or understanding self or being able to create space, but to create space, you need to understand stillness, right? So again, it is a place where your gut instinct will likely tell you who is going to be the right person to talk to. And if you feel like that's nobody and you are more of the person that likes to talk to people, I would then recommend either you create a voice note for yourself, like a voice recorded note, go back and listen to it as many times as you want, or you can write it down on a piece of paper. Okay. That is probably going to be the better options for someone that likes to talk to other people, because by writing it out and getting out of you, then you're going to create the space. And what I mean by creating that space is now that it's out of you in that thought process way, you can then find the stillness. But for you also to still find the stillness, you still need to be able to go into like a meditative state or something where your brain stays a little quieter. Okay. If you are only a writer in an external processing way and you'll write pages of pages of your thoughts, that's okay. You can still write it out, but change it up a little bit where you start to have a little bit internal stuff happening. Because again, when we're stuck in one way or the other, or it's kind of our comfort zone, we can kind of limit our way of finding the stillness, especially if it's not something that's super normal for you to easily find. Now, internal processors like myself, we can definitely have a bit of a learning curve too by being able to express that sometimes to someone we're really close with or trust. To express ourselves a little bit, I guess, coming out of that state of stillness and being able to express that in a way that's very human can be helpful at times if it feels like it's necessary. There's definitely been times where I've informed or done things that just felt like, oh man, that just even made more sense to me because now I finally actually said it out loud. So it might be some things like that that you might find internally, but this is why to know what kind of how your process is can be very, very helpful as well. Because if you want to integrate, or you're looking for solutions, or you've got some challenging times maybe right now, or maybe you got tons of worries and overwhelm and all this stuff keeps showing up, to find stillness and be able to integrate that will help you immensely in how you're feeling as well. A lot of people are forgetting some of the tools or forgetting to do certain things that comes to their energy self. And I'm finding that a lot of them are, oh man, I'm fighting with just feeling like a bag of shit or all these things. Of course you are, because the duality on earth right now is very intense. So if we've got all this change happening, there's a lot of fear, right? So we're upped on the side of fear right now. We're upped in the side of unknown. We're upped in the side of unsureness. If you want more stability, go inwards to yourself right now. Reconnect with you, reconnect with the earth, reconnect with the energy of who you actually are. And I promise you'll start to feel better. You won't be so affected by all that collective energy of the unsureness. Okay. So this month is a month of truth. This month is a month of recognizing that there's going to be a lot that will happen into the rest of this year as well, but there's a lot of really amazing things coming as well. They keep showing me 27, 28, the year 2027, 2028 are going to be really big years as well. This was just kind of the first year. The year of 2025 was a big year for the massive integration in the physical actually starting to happen. It's going to feel kind of crazy for some yet for the next year or two, depending on how things kind of level out. But this is a point in time where they literally just showed me the turning point. So this is where things start to really change, but for the betterment of humanity. But we need everybody to not fear that. We need people to embrace the unknown and knowing that it does get to be better. And that's what I choose to focus on. Because no matter what it looks like, just like when someone first started painting the picture, right? Picasso. Oh my gosh, they brought back this really funny clip where there was this old video of Picasso drawing this face. And I actually started to laugh out loud because Picasso is this great artist and stuff in today's world. And I mean, I get why to certain degrees, but this video just made me laugh because it was such a simplistic face that he drew. And in so many minds, people think you got to be so much more complicated or all these things, right? And he drew this in no time at all. And it was like this big hurrah, and everybody was like, wow, that's how I want you to feel about this shift. I want you to feel like, hey, maybe it's because I always thought this was supposed to be like something big and crazy and really complicated, but yet it turns out to be this really simple phase. And yet it brings joy and happiness and excitement. And that is exactly what is coming. We are just in the midst of the tunnel. Remember that the light is growing larger, it's growing easier to see. Find it in yourself first, and you will lead not just yourself, but others to help them to find the light that exists within the end of this tunnel as well. It's coming, you guys. It's coming. We just have to be okay with the process and okay with the uncomfortability that will come with this process that already has been showing up. But at the same point, it will get easier when you start to embrace the factor that this is change and this is true change and this gets to be something different. And we've never been at this point on earth before. And so, of course, we have a chance to change it, but we got to change inwards first. We have to align ourselves with that higher frequency before we are able to bring that into a physical aspect on earth. And I'm not saying it's all on your responsibility to bring earth, and the collective, but it is our sole responsibility as being an individual. How rough of a life do you want to live in the mindset of everything? Because how you think about things is always the outcome of what you feel, right? And when you feel something that's maybe a little bit uncomfortable, instead of running away from it, choose to be with it. Choose to ask yourself, all right, I think I've been running from this for a while. What is actually behind this feeling? What have I been truly running from this entire time? What was I so scared of that yet literally is not going to kill me if I just deal with it, right? And dealing with it doesn't mean it has to be done for long. Dealing with it means feeling it, not thinking it through, not trying to figure out every aspect of it. You feel it. So that's the month of June. Okay. On the collective and a bit of more the individual side of it, I wish everybody absolutely the best. Do understand and know there's a lot of support out there. I am here. I do all sorts of different things. I've got the community. There is lots of support to be had. So if you're interested in anything, click one of those links. Come check it out. If you got questions, fire me a message. And I look forward to seeing and hopefully having you tune in real soon again to the next podcast episode.